right. Welcome everyone to the eXp Industrial Committee. We are here live with Tyler Cauble, and Pam, Frank, and I are really excited to be jumping into this interview with him. He is a player out in Nashville, Tennessee, and really excited to be breaking down his career path and getting to know you, Tyler. So without further ado, I want to introduce you guys to Tyler. Tyler, tell us a little bit about yourself, your story. We'd love to just have kind of like an overview summary of where you started, where you are now, and then we can kind of dive into some specifics.
Absolutely. So I dropped out of college after my freshman year, got into commercial real estate back in 2013 when the market was very different than it was today. And I worked for a boutique development group that owns some commercial properties that they had built themselves. So they put me to work leasing shopping centers, office buildings, and industrial. So from day one, I was kind of involved in multiple different aspects of the commercial real estate industry. But the biggest thing was that, I got to sit in on all of the development meetings every week. So about, I guess, 2 to 3 years into my career in commercial real estate, I put together my first development project, which was 42 for sale townhomes, about 15 minutes southwest of downtown Nashville in a little area called Bellevue, and left that firm in 2018 after 4.5 years and started my own company. So started the Cauble Group first, which does, at first we did a lot of leasing, but now we do almost primarily investment sales across the country. We've got Parasol Property Management, which manages about 2.1 million square feet of commercial space. We do have 49 apartment units, but I don't really go too far into that since we don't do a whole lot of multifamily. And then I've got a development firm that we started in 2020, where we syndicate capital from limited partner investors and buy anything from, micro retail all the way up to, 32-acre master plan development. So we do a little bit of everything.
That's incredible. So, something that stands out to me is you got started pretty young, right?
That's
When
right. Yeah.
you get started, and Pam as well. I know she got into the industry, and I'm very young as well. So I would love to hear, what was that like being young and being in this industry? And I mean, a lot of people talk about how it's hard to break into it, unless you're, 60, a white 60-year-old man. That was what it was dominated by. And now, it's changing. And I would love to hear, like, what was that like for you tapping into that industry?
That's very true. I mean, you still see a lot of that today, right? You still have a lot of the, 60-year-old white men that are kind of running everything. And not that there's anything necessarily wrong with that, but of course you'd like to see a little more diversity in thought. It was tough getting in at first. Fortunately, since I was working in-house for a firm, I had the listings. So it was just a matter of going out and finding the tenants. I didn't really have to compete with the CBREs and Avis and Youngs of the world for my business. It was just more so finding tenants that were willing to lease the space. There's a huge learning curve in commercial real estate. It takes 3 years before you even have an idea of what's going on, and then 5 years before you're pretty confident in what you're doing. So,
Great.
getting started, I fortunately was able to grow a beard at 21, and that was a huge help because nobody really understood how young I was. And, everybody thought that I was, 28, 30 and had been doing this for a while. So it was nice because I didn't have anybody questioning whether I knew what I was talking about or not, whether I did, which, at the time I probably didn't. But I was confident enough to go out there and ask for the business and get some deals done. So, I read every book that I could, listened to every podcast, which back in 2013, there were literally, I think, 2 podcasts, and one of them had stopped recording probably 12 or 24 months before I had even started in commercial real estate. So that was a bummer when I ran through that one. Zero YouTube videos, but look, in commercial real estate, it's very rare to find people that are willing to help you out. So I sought coaches and mentors out of market because, they were willing to help me since I wasn't going to be direct competition for them. And that was kind of how I grew and, learned how the commercial real estate industry works. I mean, when I first got started, I had no idea what I was doing at all. And I told my boss, I was like, so what do I do? And he just said, he's a developer, right? He's got bigger things going on. He doesn't care about running the leasing program. He does care to the extent that he wants his spaces leased, but it's not like he's going to sit there and show me the ropes. And he just said, go out and knock on doors and find tenants. And as soon as you have somebody that wants to sign a lease, I'll show you how to do the rest. So that's all I did. Sat there and cold called, went out, knocked on doors until I found my first deal, which took probably 6 months.
Wow, incredible, incredible. So, what? Tell me, walk me through the transition of when did you feel like it was time to go out and actually start the Cobble Group, and like what led to that realization? When did that come? How far into the process were you? You know, I see a lot of people they get into the industry and the first thing they want to do is go do their own thing before they even know what's going on, what they're doing, go chart their own path. Like, what point in your career did you start to feel that coming, and what really led to making that jump?
That's a great question. No one's ever asked me that. So when I was working for this firm, I realized very early on that I was a marketer, very good at building a brand, very good at marketing. And at the end of the day, every commercial real estate brokerage or broker, whatever you are, you're a marketer, right? If you want to sit there and make cold calls all day and not market, good for you. But that sounds miserable to me, and I don't want to spend the rest of my life doing that. And so, very early on, I started pulling uh, really just ideas from the residential real estate market, right?
Mm-hmm.
Residential real estate agents have a lot more competition than commercial real estate does. And because of that, they have advanced a lot faster. So they were utilizing Facebook and they were taking advantage of Instagram and they were posting videos on YouTube. And so I
Press
very
the
quickly was
middle
like,
button.
oh, we should be doing that for commercial properties. So I started an Instagram account, back in like, I don't know, 2016, 2017. I was one of the earliest commercial real estate people on Instagram. And because of that, I picked up a lot of followers pretty quickly because I wasn't like shoving listings down people's throats or like, hey, come work with me. It was more so of the, hey, here's the behind the scenes of what it looks like, listing a shopping center and finding tenants for it. And, here's the groups that we're working with. And, oh, yeah, that building that you drive past every day that just sits vacant. Well, here's why. And here's what's going to go in there now. And people find that stuff really interesting, whether they're interested in commercial real estate or not, because it's their neighborhood. And so, the marketing is a big thing. And I realized that the marketing efforts that I wanted to do were not very well supported at this brokerage because they did not want anything out of the ordinary going on. They wanted me to sit there, make cold calls and knock on doors. And while that can be very effective and you have to do that starting out because you don't know anybody and you probably don't have resources to market properly, it wasn't a long-term game for me. So I figured, hey, while I'm out hunting, how cool would it be to have a bunch of fishing lines out there that I could come home to and find something if I'm unsuccessful in my hunt that day? And so that's when I started the blog. That's when I started the YouTube channel. That's when we started the podcast. That's when we started the Instagram and, Facebook and all of these different things. And so all of those marketing materials are out there working for me 24 hours a day. So, now I haven't made a cold call in years. I mean, we have so much inbound business. Like I just had a broker start with me last year. He was with Avis and Young for 7 years in San Francisco. I gave him $30 to $50 million worth of business in his first 30 days. And he was like, man, this is more than Avis and Young has given me in the past 2 years. So it's all because of our marketing efforts. They've now matured. They're out there working on their own and I don't have to deal with it too much. So yeah, I know that's kind of a roundabout way to come
Yeah,
back and say like, how did you know you wanted to start your own thing? But that was it. I wanted to be able to market in the way that I wanted to market. I wanted to run my business in the way that I wanted to run my business. And I didn't have that support at that firm.
that's incredible. Yeah, and again, marketing, that's such a big piece of business, and I love that you've kind of brought those two worlds together, because I think there's sometimes a lot of there's just so much separation by choice and just by nature between residential and commercial. But I do agree there's a lot of synergies that we can learn from both, right, and apply different skill sets to different industries. So I love that. And that takes us up to, all right, great. You started with this company, you built your own company. That's going great. Now let's go to the next stage, which is, all right, when did we really start getting into investing and syndicating and putting deals together, and when did that transition take place? And walk us through the growth curve from going just with brokerage to more investment sales, bringing deals together and syndicating.
Yeah. So I started the Cobble Group in February of 2018, and we bought our first investment in February of 2019. So fairly quickly. When I first started the firm, my thought was, hey, let's hoard as much cash as possible. We're probably headed into a downturn. Because at this point, you got to think, back in 2018, we've been on an upcycle for probably 8 years. And there are very few booms in American history that have ever lasted that long. So I knew, okay, it's got to be coming soon. Well, that summer, Amazon announced a new headquarters in Nashville. Ernst & Young was relocating here. And those were two of the biggest jobs announcements in Tennessee. I think Amazon was the biggest at the time, and Ernst & Young, which was 1,500 employees, it's by no means small, was pretty big as well. So I knew, okay, well, if Amazon's going to be moving 5,000 people here, Ernst & Young is moving 1,500. These are all six-figure paying jobs. We're going to have a lot of people that are moving to Nashville. There's a lot of income coming with it, and think about all of the ancillary businesses that are going to follow that. And so that was kind of what I got confident in. Okay, we should probably start buying stuff. But buying your first deal is scary, right? Like I had been helping other people do it for a while. I knew the exact process of how to do it, but there's still always just that like mental block that you create that doesn't deserve to be there, in my opinion. But it's funny kind of how I fell into my first deal. So I had a client that was looking at buying a building for his own business. And we found one for him out in a little suburb called Old Hickory Village. And it was one of like three commercial buildings in this neighborhood. It was on a corner. It was 6,000 square feet. And we had negotiated the price for 575,000. Well, it's, basically $80 a square foot, give or take. So I knew like replacement cost alone, this deal was going to be worth it. Needed hardly any work done to the building, could very easily be split up into two tenants. And we were probably 3 months into the contract, and his dad decided to pull the funding on his project. And so he was like, well, I can't qualify for a loan on myself. I've got to drop it and walk away. Well, I mean, I'm sitting here going, hey, I need 3%. I've worked, 3 months for this 3% commission on this deal. I got let me go find somebody else. So I found another investor that came in, and within 30 days, almost the exact same thing happened to him. His funding got pulled, and he couldn't close on the deal. And so, look, I've been working on this project 4 months. I know this building probably better than the owners at the time did. And I said, assign the contract to me. I'll figure it out. Knowing I didn't have any money, right? I didn't know what the hell I was going to do. So I had been in commercial real estate at this point for over 5 years, right? I had a pretty good base of people that had been, either past clients or had seen the kind of work that we'd done. And so I texted two people. I said, hey, look, I'm buying this building. Here's my plan for it. I mean, you should see my underwriting compared to what we do today. It's like the most embarrassing. Like, to call it back of napkin is insulting to back of napkin underwriting. It was basically like, hey, we're buying it for 575. We're putting 20% down. We'll rent it for this, and we'll get this return. It's just
Awesome.
total garbage. And fortunately, my thought process was correct. And both of those investors said yes. So it was the easiest capital raise I've ever done. I sent 2 text messages and got $100,000. Rolled my 3% commission in as equity in the deal. So that gave me 15% of the total down payment. So I got 15% equity. And then I took an additional 10% just for finding the deal and putting it together. So I got 25% in this deal, and ended up being a really good one. We ended up selling it about 18 months later to one of the tenants that we ended up leasing the space to for $750,000. So by no means a home run, but we got some pretty good returns on that deal.
Incredible. So, with you getting into ownership, I think that's an amazing story, by the way, because a lot of people say, they'll make excuses why they can't buy deals, or they need money, or this and that. And by the way, I'm a huge proponent of, if you're selling commercial real estate to investors, you should put your money where your mouth is. You know,
That's right.
whether it's all your own money or not, but your time, whether it's time, the money, put something in to commercial real estate, because otherwise I'll call you a hypocrite. So I would love to kind of get into now. All right, you're putting deals together, you're building up a portfolio. Let's talk about your property management company, and when did that happen? What got you to that point? I self manage my own deals, my own properties. I've learned very quickly that that's not something I personally want to do, but also it can be expensive to outsource it to a third party company. So walk me through what that process looked like, and when that became the realization for you, and tell us more about that. I'd love to hear about your company.
Yeah. So working for that boutique firm, they had brokerage in-house, right? They had me leasing all their properties. They had a property manager in-house managing all their properties. They had a project manager in-house handling all the build outs. And then they had a general contractor that was handling all the new construction. And I saw firsthand the synergy that was created by having all of those groups in the office from day one, right? So you've got all of these people that are sitting here working on the project. So as soon as it's actually, I start working on a lease. Well, the property manager is already there saying, hey, keep this in mind for the lease. So by the time he gets the lease, he already knows 100% what's in that. And it's very easy for him to take over the management.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the project manager has also been sitting in, right? So he knows, okay, the tenant wants me to paint, carpet, delete this wall, add another half wall here. So he's already like very well prepared. By the time we're signing the lease, he's already got quotes in place and everybody's been sitting in the office. So I knew going and starting my own firm, I was going to be very intentional about how we built it. And initially, I had wanted to build out 4 pillars of our business. So brokerage, property management, development, and construction. But I also learned very quickly, like, I don't want to touch construction. I'd rather be the guy holding the guys to the fire than being the guy held to the fire. So we kind of dropped that one for at least the foreseeable future. But I was intentional about it. So we had property management in-house, and 6 months into starting my own firm, this was also still in 2018. It was August of 2018. We started the property management company because I had a couple of clients that were selling residential portfolios and 1031 exchanging into shopping centers. Well, they needed a property manager. And I needed a more steady income because I had just started a commercial real estate brokerage business. And, the beautiful thing about commercial real estate is you can get some pretty good commissions. Sometimes it might take a year for a deal to close, or 18 months. I mean, I've got one that's been under contract, I kid you not, for almost 3 years. It might get closed eventually. We'll see. So starting the property management was pretty easy for us because I knew kind of how the process worked. I knew that I wanted the steady monthly income. And then it also basically guaranteed that we were going to get the leasing on those products after the client closed on it. So it was very easy for us to vertically integrate that into the business without really adding too much more headache to myself. But I was also intentional in setting it up so that I didn't have to create more work for myself personally, because I want to be able to disappear for 30 days if I want, right? Now, starting the business back in 2018, not a chance was that going to happen. And it just happened for the first time this past year. And I'll take another 30 days off in December this year. And I'm going to do that every year moving forward. But I had a couple of partners in that business, and we put some money into it, and we hired a property manager. And so it wasn't profitable for the first year or 2 years until we had really started buying properties and throwing those into the pool as well. And, since then, now I've got a whole team built out around it. I don't hardly have to touch the property management side of things. It's not a super profitable business, but, we distribute $2,000 to $3,000 a month to the partners, and I don't really have to work in it too much. So it's great because it gives us another selling point as the brokerage team, whether we're working with an investor or with a landlord, because we can say, hey, look, our team will have hands on every aspect of this deal for you so that you don't have to do anything. We can lease it up. We can manage it. I've got a project manager that can, handle the construction for you. I mean, we do a full service type of business for you. And a lot of, commercial real estate teams say that they do a full service, but what that means is that they're bringing in, I've got a vendor for this and I've got a vendor for that. And really you can get yourself into trouble because you don't control those businesses. If something's going wrong with the property management team, are you going to call the third party and be like, hey guys, what the hell, get out there? I'm in the office. I can say, property manager, get out on site right now and go fix this. And it's done. So it makes it a lot easier on us and a lot more beneficial for our clients.
Absolutely.
Hey, can I jump in?
Yes, go for it.
I love everything that we're hearing. I mean, you are so focused and you're so determined. And I think that for some people
I'm ready.
out there,
How much you said? 389 what?
hey, Marie, can you mute, sweetie? Thank you. I think for some people out there, they might think that you're like a unicorn, like you're just some unicorn, that you got batteries that none of us like. We can't recreate what you do. However, if we could veer off of real estate for just a second and talk more like intentional running a business, I got the coolest auto email responder from you I've ever gotten in 36 years of doing real estate and being in business ever. So I think like I believe in time blocking. I preach time blocking to the team. Everybody's got their days, their weeks, their months all charted out at the beginning of the year. But you, my friend, take it to a whole different level. And do you think that that's a reason why you can be so successful and so focused? And if you could talk a little bit about that email responder I got.
Yeah, I think that's hilarious. So I got it. Everybody loves that, by the way. I get that so often from other brokers, investors, developers. They're like, man, I wish I could do that. I'm like, you can just do it. Just set your email responder. So my vacation responder is always on. And it basically says, hey, I only check emails Tuesdays and Thursdays. And even then, good luck getting a response. If you want something, here's my development team, here's my property management team, here's my brokerage team. And if those three aren't, here's my assistant. Like I can't stand email. I think it's an absurd waste of time. I got it from Tim Ferriss, right? I mean, it's not like I just invented this. Tim Ferriss had his, autoresponder to like, I only check email twice a day. Well, I started thinking to myself, I was like, man, checking email twice a day that's way too much. Let's tone this back a bit. And I mean, look, if something is important, they're going to call or they're going to text, and then I can hand it off to my team for them to handle. If it's not important, I'll get to it when I want to get to it. You might as well send me a handwritten letter or a smoke signal. Like it's just not the most effective means of communication. If it's important, you're calling me, right? And I don't want to spend my life tied to my email. So I said it that way. I mean, my voicemail, I've probably got, I don't know, 363 voicemails sitting in my phone right now. People continue to leave me voicemails, even though my voicemail literally says, you've reached Tyler Cauble. Please do not leave a voice message and send me a text instead. That's all it says. I do not check my voicemail. I don't care if the president of the United States calls me. If it is not spam, they are texting me because that's exactly what the instructions say. So, look, is there a possibility that I miss out on business because of it? Sure, but I don't want to run my business that way, and I don't care. We've got so much business coming in that if somebody is going to get, pissed off because I have an autoresponder on my email or my voicemail says, don't leave me a voice message, then fine. I don't want to work with you anyway. Like that's such a small thing to get upset about that. Like I can't imagine getting into a $10 million deal with this person and how they're going to handle due diligence and financing. Like that sounds absolutely miserable.
Terrible.
So yeah, I mean, I'm very intentional about my time. I understand that it's a luxury, right? I've spent the last 5 years building up to that. It's not like I had that email autoresponder there day one. I mean, there were times where I was responding to emails at 1 a.m. and getting up at 5 and, doing site selection for a meeting at 7. There's a lot of hustle and grind to it. And I worked on weekends. I worked whenever I could and was just very intentional about building it to the point where I wanted it to be from day one, even though, it was taking 12 to 15 hours a day. And look, there are seasons that you will go through. I mean, there are times back during COVID, a 15-hour day was a short day for me because I had so much to do. Even though I didn't have any meetings. I mean, I went from almost 100% of my time out of office in meetings or on phone calls to 100% of my time in office. And I very quickly found a way to fill up 15 hours a day. I had nothing else to do. It wasn't like we were going out and grabbing drinks or, meeting up with friends. Just like, okay, guess I'll write another blog post. We'll record another YouTube video. We'll do another LinkedIn post. We'll just keep this train going. But now, like, I might work 6 hours a day. And there's some days where I'll work for a few hours in the morning and I'll just take off and I'll go back to my farm and get on the tractor. Like I'll do what I want. But it comes and goes in waves, right? I mean, I know that there are some days where it's just going to take 12 hours and that's totally fine. And we're going to do it. So
We talk about it like with the younger guys on the team that are just building a business right now. Some of them are just right out of college, fresh out of college. And it's like, you're gonna work your ass off right now. You're going to, right? But you're banking time in the future. Like you're single, you've got nothing else to do but develop this career and put your entire heart and soul into it. And in 5, 10 years, that's what you're doing is you're spending that time now so you can spend it later with your family, have 30 days off at the end of the year, so on and so forth. So I love that.
yeah, I mean, look, I'm a millennial. going to jump on the bash millennials and bash Gen Z train, because I think a lot of it is unwarranted. But I have noticed that a lot of people today don't feel that they need to work as hard. There's this weird movement that's like anti-work, anti-boss, anti-landlord. And I'm sure that that sentiment has been around for a while, and the internet is just amplifying it. And are there some cases where, those feelings are warranted? Sure. But complaining about it's not going to get you anywhere, right? I mean, you can sit there and cry about, not wanting to have to work 12 hours a day. If you don't want to work 12 hours a day, go get a job working for somebody else that's a 9 to 5 where you can just tune out and do your own thing. The reason that people get into real estate is because you can create your own destiny. You can go out and work as much as you want and make as much as you want. You can go out and work as little as you want and, make as little as you want. It doesn't really matter. You don't have any guidelines that are set by an employer, which is the beauty of the industry. I mean, I know guys that do 2 to 3 deals a year, make 100,000, and they call it a year, right? And they'll go out west and they'll go hunting for the rest of the season. That's great. I love that for them. That's not what I want. Like, I want to be making $1 million a month, and then I'll go out and, take 3 months off and live in luxury instead of having to budget for a while until I'm ready to do my next deal. But that's, the great thing about commercial real estate. It offers you the opportunity that you want to have.
I love that. You're getting a bunch of thumbs up out there. So
Thank you.
Because this is the industrial committee, let's kind of like bring it back to industrial real estate a bit and your experience of industrial real estate. What do you think, Jabin?
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely want to hit on a couple of projects you're working on, what's currently in the pipe. And yeah, we could go ahead and just merge in that. So, last time we talked, you're talking about buying a 1,000,000 square foot mill. Let's dive into that. I feel like this would be like the perfect segue into breaking that down. I've seen some funny stories on your Instagram about it.
Yeah. We had a pipe burst, and I guess last week or 2 weeks ago, and it was shooting 40 feet in the air. Fortunately, I was on site, so I was able to open up the gates and let the city water crew get in and shut everything off. But yeah, it's fun. I mean, we bought a 1.5 million square foot wool factory down in Rossville, Georgia. It's about 10 minutes south of Chattanooga. So it's the Chattanooga MSA. Very, very strong industrial market, because within a 2-hour drive, you can reach Nashville, Atlanta, Knoxville, the Carolinas. I think you can even get to Huntsville, maybe Birmingham in about 2 hours. So really good market. And, I like weird projects. I'm not your typical run of the mill commercial real estate investor. I don't want to do 3-tenant strip centers. That doesn't really excite me or get me out of bed. I want something that's going to be a lot of problem solving, something that's creative that other people don't want to touch, because one, that's fun to work on. But two, I know that I'm going to get a serious discount because everybody else is scared of that. Right. Mm-hmm. So when we bought this mill last year, I paid $5.6 million for it. It's already cash flowing. And if you run the numbers on a price per square foot basis, it's like barely over $3 a square foot. It would cost, with all of the concrete, structural steel, wood, masonry block that's there today, it would cost you every bit of $150 a foot, maybe $120 a foot, just to build back the shell that exists. So, and that's what it is, right? It's a shell. There's a lot of buildings there that we've got to fully finish out to get tenants into. But we knew that we were buying it cash flowing, so we didn't have to worry about, immediately filling anything up. But we've got over 1 million square feet vacant, and it's already cash flowing. So for every building that we lease up, it's going to increase the value that we put into it by about 3x. So, for every $100,000 I put into it, we've added $300,000 in value to the property. And that's been a lot of fun, because we can take so many different directions with it, right? I mean, the 20-year vision is to have a self-contained city with, creative office, apartment lofts, restaurants, retail, a brewery, a distillery, a grocery store. We'd love to have a vertical farm on site. We'll have a large outdoor amphitheater and some light industrial. So it's truly going to be mixed use. A lot of people say mixed use and it has 2 uses. This has like every single use you could possibly imagine. But there's a lot of complexity in creating that, right? And I get the question all the time, like, how do you even wrap your mind around a property like that? And I say, I have no idea. You don't. We just go one building at a time. right? You got 29 buildings. Let's just do one project, one building, right? So we just put a new roof on a 28,000 square foot space, and we're just going to lease that out. And then we'll refinance or get an additional line of credit from the bank, go finish out the next 40,000 square foot building, lease that out, rinse, wash, and repeat, and just do it one project at a time. So, there in terms of industrial, we've got light industrial. We're working on a self-storage facility, climate controlled, indoor. We could do some industrial outdoor storage there. We currently have a flooring manufacturer on site. They actually build every NBA and NCAA basketball court you have ever seen. They had one in there for Kanye because Kanye bought a basketball court from them and then forgot about it. And by the time they finally got a hold of him again, he said, "Oh yeah, I don't want it anymore. You guys can keep it." So it's the Kanye court, which is hilarious. Couldn't imagine having so much money that I buy a basketball court, forget about it, and then don't want it. But pretty cool to be able to rent that out and say this is Kanye's court, I guess.
Wow, that's incredible. That's incredible. So, tell me about financing, capital raise. What was the approach to taking down this facility? Walk us through, as granular as you'd like, what the investor conversation looked like when you're putting that together.
Yeah, I mean, it was tough, right? Because it's 1.5 million square feet on 32 acres. And one of the biggest things that scared everybody away was the phase 1 environmental report raised some concerns. And I read through it. I didn't see anything that really scared me, and figured it was all stuff that we could work out. So we kept moving forward on it. Well, when a phase 1 raises environmental concerns, of course, the bank is going to have concerns. And of course, your investors will have concerns. So we had to have it under contract for a while so that we could do a phase 2. Phase 2 basically recommended a phase 2.5. So we kind of had to keep that going. But luckily we did the phase 2.5 because it basically came back and said, "Hey, you've got a 10-foot by 10-foot square of dirt that needs to be removed." And that was pretty much
That was it. That
was yeah. And that scared everybody away from buying this property. Now, that doesn't include, the asbestos and lead paint in the buildings, right? Which we know we didn't even have that report done because you could just walk through and be like, "Yeah, that's asbestos, that's lead paint." Like, cool. We'll cover that up and remediate it on a building by building basis. But we wanted to make sure that the soils weren't seeping into the groundwater and causing any issues that we would have to spend, hundreds of thousands of dollars to fix.
Sure.
So going through the capital raise, I had to get that part settled first. And then I just brought 2 friends in. This is one of the most incentivized sites in the state of Georgia. So it has, and actually the Southeast, it's an OZ as well. So one of them threw in some OZ capital, and ended up just raising the funds from a couple of friends, because my thought was, we don't really want to raise private equity for this. We don't want to be out in 5 years. This project deserves to be its own thing, and we want to spend the time doing it right. So that meant, coming in with guys that were willing to ride it along with me on this journey and do it for 15 to 20 years. So that's kind of where we are today. We have a senior loan for, I think, like 3.7 million. We've got a construction line of credit for about 700,000, and we brought about $2.6 million in equity to the table.
Beautiful.
Very simple.
Beautiful. So I also want to hit on, by the way, I think that's an incredible structure and a way to do that. And you take it down piece by piece, it's already cash flow, and that's fantastic. And I love this kind of more of a legacy play. That's going to be one that stays in the portfolio a while, and I think you're gonna be able to make a lot of cool content around it too, which is gonna be fun.
Yeah.
I also want to hit on, Pam, I mentioned this to you and Frankie. I actually had an opportunity to go and check out this really neat, I'll call it a micro retail adaptive reuse project that Tyler took on. It was a really, really cool project. It had a bunch of little micro retail, restaurants and like a little bar, and it was so cool. I'll send you a picture of it. But Tyler, I'd love for you to talk about that deal too, because I think that I love that you've got a range too of 1.5 million square foot, mixed use redevelopment project, all the way down to, hey, we're going to take a little car wash and turn it into some micro retail in near downtown. I just love the scale of both of those. So walk me through that project as well, because a lot of people on here, we've got everybody from rookies all the way up to vets, and there's a very good mix of people that are watching this. And I think it would be really cool to hit on a much more sizable, digestible project for somebody getting started to keep their eyes out for opportunities and how you're able to, convert this into what it is now, which is so cool.
Yeah, so that kind of leans into getting started in a boutique development firm. I wasn't forced to focus on any single asset class, which I'm really grateful for, right? Because when I first started off, I was doing a whole bunch of office. Well, office kind of went off back in 2020. We still own some office and it's doing great, but it's a different style of office. And if I was solely an office guy, I'd be a little worried right now. I've got some friends that are strictly on the office side, and they're still trying to figure out what the future of office is going to be. I think it's going to come back. I mean, all of the reports, all the data that's coming out is that workers are less productive when they're not in the office. I mean, it's just a fact. So it'll come back in some form or fashion, but it's probably going to be a little bit different, right? It's like the revolution that retail went through. Retail, everybody was so quick to say retail is done. But look at it now. I mean, experiential retail, the types of retailers that are out there, they're crushing it. And retail is an incredible investment again. So we back in 2018, 2019, when we started the management company, we had short-term rental management services. That's a huge thing in Nashville. And we were managing about a dozen Airbnbs. And man, they are an absolute pain. If you really want to have to work a whole bunch, then get into short-term rental management.
All the TikTokers, it's
oh
just
my gosh,
easy, just live free, financial freedom.
Yeah, we dropped that. I mean, as much money as it produced, it wasn't worth the amount of work that we were having to put into it. And it was probably even with our commercial business, but we were looking at it going, okay, commercial takes like less than an hour of the partners' times per week. The short-term rental probably takes 10. So it was a very easy decision for us to make. But we were consulting on a project. The client owned a 6-bay car wash in East Nashville that had some hair on it, because if you tore the building down, it was on a 0.1 acre parcel, very, very small. I mean, postage stamp. If they tore the building down, Metro Nashville was going to condemn 20 feet of right of way for transit. So he was working within the existing confines of the building, trying to figure out, okay, what can I convert these 6 bays into? Well, his conclusion was, let's do Airbnbs. That's a very popular thing. We can turn these into 1 bedroom, or not even 1 bedroom, just suites, right? For Airbnb, it's close to downtown. You can kind of walk to some cool things, whatever. Well, when 2020 hit, that project got put on indefinite pause. And so we were, trying to think of like other ways that we could, take this off and do something different. Maybe it was office, maybe it was retail. And I was driving past it one day during COVID, and I kept getting calls from restaurants in Nashville saying, hey, do you have anything available that's less than 1,000 square feet, that's mostly kitchen, where we can focus on to-go and delivery? We don't want any of the dead space because nobody's going to be sitting inside. And I kept having to tell them, like, sorry, that doesn't exist. That's not a thing in Nashville. I think the average space is like 1,500 square feet. It's a lot of indoor seating. And I had just gotten off of one of those calls, breaking another group's heart, and drove past the wash, this car wash. And I started thinking to myself, like, wouldn't it be interesting if we converted those into basically ghost kitchens, right? Because ghost kitchens were all the craze when COVID first hit. I had just written an article on it. And then I started thinking, like, okay, it'd be cool, but they'd be like retail facing, right? They'd be retail facing ghost kitchens because you're on this major corridor. It's not your typical ghost kitchen, which is, in the basement of some building. And, we could maybe have some outdoor seating, get rid of the drive aisle. So I called my architect and I was like, hey, hang up on me if you think this is crazy, but what are your thoughts on converting these car wash bays into restaurants? And he was like, yeah, man, I think that we can actually do that. So I ended up calling the seller, put it under contract, and then started calling my friends that were in the restaurant business, because we had represented a lot of restaurants leasing and buying space. And one of the first calls I made, the guy was like, I'm in, I'll lease a space. I'll be your first person. So I knew, okay, we're probably on to something. So we ended up creating 5 micro restaurants and a bar. They're all about 400 square feet. That includes an 80 square foot walk-in. They're basically cut up into 3 separate sections built within the walls of the previous car wash. So you've got kind of your service area where they're taking orders. In the back, they've got, or in the middle, they've got the kitchen, and the back is like your dish area and then walk-in cooler. And there's no indoor seating. It's all outdoor. So it's very COVID friendly. We have 3 parking spaces. They're 15 minutes max for to-go and delivery. All the other parking is on the street, and it's in a walkable neighborhood. So when we first started working on the project, our initial thought was, what if we went and grabbed all of the biggest brands in Nashville that don't have a presence in East Nashville? This would be a great like first step into the market, and this and that and the other. But the more that we talked about it and we looked at what we were going to be able to charge for rents, we were like, these are inherently affordable spaces because they're small. We've done a lot of micro concepts. At the time, I was working on a motel conversion into apartments. Those were 216 square foot apartment units, incredibly successful project. We had just done some micro office space. We signed 17 leases at the height of COVID for micro office space, which, blew everyone away. And so I thought, you know what, let's focus on small businesses and give restaurant groups that may not otherwise have a chance to lease brick and mortar, because restaurants are unbelievably expensive. I mean, one, if it's a second generation restaurant, good luck leasing that as a first time restaurateur, because everyone that already has 10 locations is lined up fighting for that. They already have the capital and the backers. If it's not built out, you're dropping $500,000 into that day one. Like, you're not even in a blink of an eye. So we ended up finishing the spaces out. We put in the hood vent, the grease trap, the 3 compartment sink, and the walk-in cooler. And we're able to lease these out at 3 to 4 times market rate per square foot for restaurants, which made it work for us. But on an all-in monthly basis, it was like under $4,000 a month. So it made all the sense in the world. And these restaurants got open on average for about $30,000. So we were able to give people that were doing pop-ups and food trucks a chance to get into brick and mortar. And now those restaurants do about $500,000 to $600,000 a year each, which is insane. I mean, if you multiply that on a square foot basis, they're basically $1.5 to $2 million a year restaurants.
Wow.
I love that story so much. If I could jump in, I think that like what you just described, that whole entire experience and what you guys did, that is the essence of commercial brokerage, right? So you're looking at properties that could be tired and old and worn out. What is their new highest and best use? The new highest and best use is not always, like, cities grow, culture changes people, how we do things. And I really think that is the essence of being a commercial brokerage. How do we serve this community? And then you just layered on top of that, like, let's help the smaller businesses. Let's help the smaller restaurants. And I think that is so cool. We've got some amazing opportunities around us everywhere. I can say that in Las Vegas, I think a lot of commercial brokers don't even know, but our zoning has, like, the vision for the city has changed. So recently we've got new Title 30, which is our master zoning. And we've got a lot of old industrial product that was built like 40 years ago. And honestly, this product is pretty much unleasable. The ceiling height is too low. The door height is too low. Like, it's just technology and the way we do things has changed so fundamentally since it was developed. And now all that product is actually, it's so close to I-15 and the Strip. It's all been rezoned H1, which is resort, where we could go in and we could do experiential. There's like so many different things that we can do with this property. And a good commercial brokerage understands their city, understands their product, understands the needs, and that's how you find opportunities, in my opinion.
That's exactly right. I mean, you got to keep an eye on, like, in Nashville, we have the Nashville Now Next plan, right? So we know the city's vision for the next 20 years, what they envision these corridors becoming, these neighborhoods, et cetera. So it even shows you, hey, we see this, little residential property eventually becoming commercial. And we see this, low density commercial piece becoming high density residential. And so if you can find properties like that, your chances of getting them rezoned to that piece are significantly increased, because they already know this is what we want from this property. So this property that we bought for the Wash, it was mixed use, and it sat on a major corridor. And at the time that we put it under contract, we had no idea what we were going to do for parking, because, when you have 6 restaurants, you have to have a certain, per square foot, you have to have a certain amount of parking spaces, right? So we were negotiating with the owners and this and that and the other. And we had heard rumors that the council was putting forth a bill to get rid of parking on this corridor to help spur businesses, right? Because parking requirements are an absolute bane to commercial real estate. There is no reason that they should ever exist because the private market will determine how much parking is necessary, right? I mean, no developer is going to go build a building that has zero parking and no parking available nearby because they're not going to lease the space or sell the units. It's just not going to happen. But it prevents projects like the Wash from happening. And fortunately, while at like 2-3 months after we'd got under contract, the city passed the bill and removed all parking requirements from that corridor. And that's the only reason that the Wash is able to exist the way that it is today. Because they removed parking requirements, we were able to create homes for 6 small businesses.
Love that. Well, we are coming to the end. So typically what we do with like the last 15 minutes is love you to like offer anything in closing that you might have for commercial agents out there specializing in industrial, trying to get into the industrial sector. And industrial is such like a big word anyway, right? There's so many different asset classes within that one asset class we call industrial. So they're almost all niches of their own. But if you have any parting words, and then if anybody out there has any questions, feel free to put them in the chat or just unmute yourself. I don't see any questions in the chat right now. So is there anything, what would you leave us with?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing, kind of like what we talked about earlier in the chat. I mean, you're all marketers, whether you think that you are or not. You don't have to be the best broker out there. You just have to be the one that people can easily find, right? I mean, we're by no means the best industrial broker. We're by no means the best industrial investor. But if you go in and type in like what is flex space on Google, we're we're on the first page. You type in what is industrial real estate, we're on the first page. Usually we're number one. But it's because, 3 years ago, I wrote a blog post on everything you need to know about industrial real estate. And over that time, we've just continued to add to it. And now we provide enough information for Google to say, yeah, this should be number one on Google. Well, we get a ton of traffic from that. An absolutely crazy amount of traffic from being number one on Google. And we don't do the most industrial transactions in Nashville. We don't even do the biggest industrial transactions in Nashville, but we get a lot of industrial business because of it. So I would just say, treat yourself like a marketing company, not a broker. Figure out what that means and how that changes your daily business as you're going through the brokerage. Because I don't know about y'all, but I don't want to sit there and have to knock on doors and make cold calls for the rest of my life. It's really, really nice coming in the office this morning and I got a lead from somebody in Texas, wanting to see if we'll work on a project out there. Like, yeah, absolutely, we will. It's pretty nice.
So I love what you're saying. We call it passive prospecting. So in other words, like you get your face out there, whether it's YouTube, whether it's Google, whether it's LinkedIn, whatever, you're hitting critical mass and people have a relationship with you online. You don't have any idea who these people are. You've never met them. They've never entered your sphere of influence or your mind, but they feel like they know you because you present yourself to them everywhere, right? So you're not even having to build trust anymore because they already trust you. So when they call you, it's not like they're going to call you to say, hey, I hate what you're doing. You should really stop doing those YouTube videos. They call you because they want to transact. Like,
well,
right.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, we've got, I don't know, I'm trying to look at my YouTube channel right now to see how many videos we have. I know it's probably close to 350 videos, but we get 4,000 watch hours per month. 4,000 hours. So, I mean, I've got clients that have been watching my YouTube channel for 2 years before they call me. And then when they call me, they're like, you are the only person that I want to work with because I've been watching all of your videos. I feel like I know you. I like the way that you teach. I like the way that you talk, you do your thing. So it makes it so much easier. When you cold call random clients, like you have to spend so much time overcoming hurdles because they're like, why the hell should I be talking to you right now? Right. Whereas if you are putting all this content out there, they're reading it and then they reach out to you. They're already bought on working with you. It's just a matter of closing that business. It's great. It makes my life so much easier.
One more question for you around this, because another thing that, like you're so authentic to who you are, right? Like you're not trying to cast a wide net. You're not trying to be anybody that you're not. Because I feel like because you're so authentic, you're just going to attract your tribe, right? And those are the people you want to do business with anyway. If somebody watches you and they don't resonate with you, they can go find another industrial broker, but it really doesn't matter. I feel like the more authentic and focused that you are, like the more true you are to yourself, you don't have to worry about it. There's enough business out there and your tribe will find you.
It took me some time to figure that out, right? Because I had a boss when I first got started that was like, no, you wear a button down every day. You usually bring a jacket with you in case you have an important meeting. You stay clean shaven. You cut your hair. Don't show your tattoos, whatever. And so for the longest time, like I had, I didn't have the sleeve that I've got now. I had it down to my elbow basically, but I could kind of hide that with a long t-shirt, or I could hide it with, the sleeves rolled up. And I remember going on a tour one day with a client, really cool restaurant group here in Nashville. Everybody's dressed down, right? They're wearing jeans, t-shirts, backwards hats. And they at one point, I show up wearing a suit jacket and a button down. It's 100 degrees outside in Nashville. I'm sweating my ass off. I look like a total idiot in this meeting. And then I get called out on it. They're like, you are so overdressed. Like, what do? You look ridiculous. And I was like, yeah, I do look ridiculous. And since then, I don't dress up anymore. I wear nice t-shirts, right? I don't wear graphic t-shirts. I'm not afraid to show my tattoos. I wear like Lululemon pants and, Vans. Like that's just how I dress because that's how my clients dress.
I love it.
I love it. We have a couple questions I want to get to before we have to go. Rachel is asking, where would you suggest starting marketing efforts? Blogs, SEO, social, LinkedIn, YouTube, etc.
That is a great question. It depends on what you're going to commit to for at least 1 year. So it doesn't matter what it is, right? If you really love writing and you're willing to write a blog post every week for a year, go do that. If you prefer to post photos of what you're doing on Instagram and that's easier for you and you're willing to do that once or twice a week for a year, do that. It really comes down to whatever you're going to commit to. I know people that are incredibly successful on Twitter, right? Coy Davidson, right? Is that the broker out of Texas? He's the office tenant guy. And, he's been doing Twitter for years, crushes it. I don't think that he does anything else but Twitter. I have tried Twitter and I suck at it. Or X, whatever it's called now. I'm so bad at it. I don't understand how anybody gets business done on Twitter, but all he does is that, and he gets all of his business from it. So there's no one right answer. It completely depends on how you're going to market to that demographic that you're targeting. Yeah. Erica's saying I crush on Facebook. Absolutely. Like your demographic could be on Facebook, could be LinkedIn, could be Twitter, Instagram. I mean, Gary Vee was pushing Snapchat for the longest time. I don't think that anybody in here is going to find good clients on Snapchat, but there's a possibility for it. I mean, and think of ways that you could also repurpose your content, right? Like I'm not a big TikTok guy, but we're creating the reels for Instagram because I'm big on Instagram. And those 30-second shorts are very easy to just upload to TikTok as well. I don't know that I'll ever get anything out of it, but I've already got the content. I might as well put it on that platform. So yeah, I think it's whatever you're going to commit to and make happen. I mean, people ask me about the podcast all the time. Like, I'm thinking about starting a podcast. What should I do? I'm like, if you can't talk about it every week for 1 year before you even bother to look at the analytics, don't do it.
100%.
Thanks for saying that. I love that you put even out that 1 year timeline, right? I think the hardest thing in this business for people, we've got like a 90, this is a horrible stat, but we have about a 95% fail rate by year 5. Most people getting into the business of real estate, whether it's residential or commercial, that's just licensing. And I would suggest it's probably even more than that because a lot of people just hang on to their license just because, right? But I think the hardest thing is to keep going even when you don't see an immediate result. Like that goes against human nature, right? Especially nowadays. I feel like a lot, nowadays we're really into that instant gratification because it's Amazon Prime. It's right now. Like things have gotten so easy for us. However, you used the word mature earlier in the interview, and I love it. It's like one of the things that I wrote down. You have to give your marketing time to mature. You can't do it once or twice and say, hey, I'm arrived. Where is all my business? It's something that you have to have the patience to let it mature, and it will blossom as long as you're committed to it. Who was it? Patrick Bet David. He was like, I'm going to do a video a day for a year. And if I get nothing out of it, I'll stop. But I'm not stopping until I've done a video a day for a year. And then he ended up doing like 2 videos a day. It was going to be 2 minutes with Patrick, right? And his assistants hated him because they were typically 17-minute videos because he talks a lot and he can't ever like be quiet, right? But he lays credit to those videos for 1 year to his success. His dedication, even when nobody was watching, still putting them out there for 1 year, relentless.
Yep. I mean, look, your first podcast is going to be terrible. Your first 10 are probably going to be terrible. Your first Instagram post, probably going to be terrible.
And post them anyway, right?
Well, the good thing is no one's going to see it. So you might as well get the practice, right? I mean, we're now over 150 episodes into our podcast. I don't even want to go back and listen to my first one because it is probably horrific. But the good thing is I've got 150 podcasts under my belt now. So it's super easy for me to just jump on. I don't really have to spend too much time preparing, and I can just start talking. And it creates good content. I mean, it's just practice. You just got to get the practice in, get the reps, right? Like you can't do 10 push-ups and expect to be ripped. You got to do it every day for a year, and then you'll start to see results.
100%.
Over time.
Do we have a question out there?
I have a question.
Go ahead, Nazi.
Hi. I am from California, and what I'm doing, we have lots of retail building, especially offices, which they shut down because of that. And one of them actually, they converted it to Chevron actually converted it to the apartment building, and they're moving to Texas. And my question is, how or who would I talk to, if I get the listing, and how would I get the listing, getting my feet in there and find the investor they're able to convert that? Because I've done zoning, I've done all those developments, but I need the niche. And do you guys have any idea how would I do that?
I mean, I'll tell you from my perspective on those big corporate deals, I avoid them because the amount of time and effort that you'd have to put into it, especially if you're starting out, just to get a hold of somebody at corporate to tell you, no, this is our plan for that, it hasn't been worth it in my opinion. I tend to focus on the small mom and pop investors. So I'll go find the corridors in my city where there's not a lot of corporate or institutional investment going on. And when I look up the properties, they're probably in the property owner's name. It makes my life so much easier because I can get a hold of them very quickly, get a quick yes or no, and move on. Of course, you could add them to your list and just, make sure that you're touching base with them once a week, or, giving them a call, shooting them an email, whatever that is. But, I have found it to be very difficult to get a hold of corporations like that. Sometimes though, you'll be able to find their real estate team. But when they're that big, they've got a real estate team that's kind of already handling everything for them.
Okay, how about this small? I appreciate your answer. And that was a great answer. It just like, I do know that. I know better than that. So how about on a small businesses? Like I know there's a small, anyway, small store. It's not a store, it's a business, and that can be converted. The land has a value, and that can be converted. But the thing is, when I go to the seller and they would say, okay, do you have a buyer? And I have to have an investor to step in. And how would it's not something, it's like a residential real estate, you go and put it in the MLS. So how can you help? What would be your recommendation?
Yeah, so there's a couple of different ways that you could approach that. I mean, the first way is, great, I've got 3 investors lined up that I'm going to get this in front of. Can you get me any information you have on, the financials of the building? Do you have any surveys, any floor plans, et cetera? because, you know, I mean, you want to make sure that you've got at least, you know, a couple of investors you do want to get it in front of, because at the very least, you'll be able to get them feedback. Like, hey, my investors took a look at this. Here was their thought. They think it's worth $500,000 less than what you thought because of X, Y, and Z in your financials, or something like that, right? Because it gives you an opportunity to prove to these owners that you know what you're doing and know what you're talking about. The other thing that you could say is, you know, hey, that'd be great. I'll go get it in front of my investors too. But if you want me to maximize the returns on your property, here's how I would market it. And here's the best way to reach the broadest amount of buyers. You know, we'll do X, Y, and Z. And instead of me taking it to my personal list of, you know, 500 potential investors, I'm going to take it out to 10,000, and we'll increase your chances of getting a successful close. If they say no to that, then I would just keep it as a pocket listing. And, you know, if you come across any investors that are looking for something similar to that, then it could be a good opportunity for them. Gives you an excuse to reach back out to the sellers and see, you know, just make contact, see if they're still willing to sell it, see if they've come back to reality or whatever that is. But yeah, I would try and get the listing if you can, and just, you know, tell them like, hey, look, I've got a pretty good marketing base, but, you know, taking it out to market is going to be the best way for us to have a successful transaction here.
Good. And do you have any idea, like, how would I search the investors by any aspects? I mean, is in any ways, like, and I know you do have lots of advertising. Do you have some ideas?
And I was going to say, Nazi, we can also, you know, we'll get with you after the fact because we're kind of running low on time here. We'll chat with you one-on-one, and we can get you plugged in with a bunch of resources to help with that as well. Because, you know, we definitely want to get you business and make sure you're locking that down. But want to make sure we're running low on time here. So
Can I get you guys
Nazi,
information?
Nazi, let me ask you one question. Are you with eXp Realty or eXp Commercial?
Well, I went to the eXp Realty because I got sick, so I'm coming back to eXp Commercial. So
Okay,
that's
so yeah. So
yeah.
we'll connect with you, and we can actually help you go through the platforms and the sites that eXp Commercial provides us with our tech stack. And we can teach you how to, you know, data mine the correct investor for whatever project you have in mind, the artificial intelligence laid over that lets us know how to reach out to them and all that good stuff. So we'll definitely support you with that. That's exactly what this committee is for.
No problem. What number I can reach you, guys?
I'll put Frankie, will you put your number in the chat, Frankie and Jabin?
Yep, we'll do it right now.
And then just to recap, you know, we love bringing people on like Tyler that are willing to actually spend time with us and share their experience with us, and, you know, the bump and the grind. It's not all roses, you know. We go through a process building a business and learning any type of new niche in the real estate industry for sure. And so it's our goal in the industrial committee just to give you guys a little bit of a taste, to support you in any questions that you have, whether you're a seasoned veteran in industrial or whether you're just looking to get into the business. Commercial real estate as a beast is entirely different than residential real estate. So it's almost like you have to just take that cap off and be willing to learn something completely new and different. Some things will relate, a lot of them don't. So we're always here for you guys, and you can always reach out to us through Workplace, wherever my phone number is all over the place. So don't ever be afraid to reach out to us in reference to any questions that you have. And I just want to end by thanking everybody for being here. Tyler, you have been so much incredible information. We can't even say thank you enough. It doesn't sound like enough for giving us a little bit of your time. I know that time is the most valuable thing that we have, so we really appreciate it.
Yeah, happy to do it. Really appreciate you guys having me on here. This was fun.
Awesome.
Let's
it
have
was awesome. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks,
We appreciate you.
Good to see you, brother. It's been a long time.
Good to see you. Yeah, man. Hope you're doing well, Robert.
Well, I'll be out there in November. Gotta connect.
Hit me up. I'll be here.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
In the house.
See you guys.
All right, guys.
Thank you,
Thank you, guys.
Have a good
Appreciate
one.
everybody.